FDWA, Foreign Domestic Workers Alliance, is coordinated by Center for Development Initiative (CDI).
2017 para aje to kina Asia mana domestic worker kan suru hua time te kina wina suru ho je to alop share kori bol mon ki karne hole to mana domestic worker kan bi aje kali bara bishi join kora ma to bishi ase etu ne kina suru korse tu na jani na thakibo 2017 para suru kora time te man group 3 ta ya thakise to group 3 ta thakya do mahan do idu time this Sister Teresa Ward July thakise to meeting bishi thake time te to mangya Martinez meeting de aha time de man du jaw he alchi ina ki hoina thake holi time mangya support korina aise man nisho la nam likhole na jane nisho la signature kole na jane suru hua tante holi meeting de aha time de aina ki man jan aise nisho la nam likhe phone number likhe aro signature kore idu time de mangya support korina ina meeting ki de aha time de man ki man jan aise aina man la nisho la nam bi लिखियोले ना जाने भी आयुधा ये ते वरा माला नाम ला स्पेलिंग कमी ठीक लिखियोले जाने शे सिग्नेचर भी ना जाने खान भी करोले पारे शे और सर आपने की भी टेंस तो ये तो आगे रिक्वेस्ट कर दिया निशा मान डोमेस्टिक वर्कर खान एकला नोइना माला मोटा खान की सपोर्ट कर दी ना स्कीम की ताकि शुरू माला मोटा खान की भी मदद कर दी वैला तो आगे रिक्वेस्ट कर तंते तो मान खुशी पाइना माला मोटा खान ला लेबर ऑफिस दे माला मोटा खान करने में स्कीम इतु दिया करने मान पेंडेमिक टाइम पे बिशे दुख पवाइना ताकि तंते तो आन इदु मान ला रास्ता खुले दिया पड़ा इदु किस तक भी पाइना माला गोरी चिदावले पारेशे और पेंडेमिक ते किमान जन मान के एनजीओस अलग-अलग ब्रा सिस्टम हमरा काम करना मान के दिसे सब कमाल के भी थैंक्स जनाई दिए से और मान थैंक्स पुदे मत पंजाब नेशनल बैंक के शिके राके भी थैंक्स पुई दोले मन बुशे
Warm greetings from the Director and the Office of the Center for Development Initiatives CDI, Bularpar, Assam. I wish all our domestic workers present here today and those who are not present here today also a very happy International Domestic Workers Day. আমি এতিয়া domestic workers কিমান বি এটা আইনা আছে সবকে happy International Domestic Workers Day আছে Domestic workers form the third largest category of workers after agriculture and construction workers. In India, domestic workers is one of the largest yet the least regulated industry. They are an indispensable part of everyday lives of a large segment of people living in urban areas. It is estimated that in India, there are 4.8 million domestic workers, out of which 3 million are female domestic workers. Over the years, there has been an increase in the supply and demand of domestic workers in India, especially in Nagaland. With the rapid changes in the Indian economy, there has been a rise in poor rural women seeking work in the urban areas and town areas. But they are not considered as workers, rather referred to as servants or maids. Most of them are either illiterate, minimally educated, or low-skilled. Hence, they have been facing exploitation for a very long time due to their lack of illiteracy and social status. They are denied minimum wages, lack social security cover, made to work for long hours without fair wages, and are vulnerable to physical abuse and harassment by the employers. In India, particularly in Nagaland, there is a lack of dedicated legal provisions for the domestic workers. We need a great social and political commitment to address this issue and the challenges faced by the domestic workers, because in the absence of such commitment, this injustice will continue and this group of people, the lives of this group of people will remain stagnant. Our organization, that is Center for Development Initiatives, CDI, is an NGO committed towards ensuring rights, dignity, solidarity, and better working conditions of the domestic workers in Northeast India. Over the years, CDI have been working relentlessly for the cause of this group of workers across the Northeast states, that is Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. The International Domestic Workers Day, which is observed on 16th of June every year, is an event observed and celebrated by CDI with much fervor and keenness. But a single day is not enough to celebrate these people, this group of workers, and to fight and negotiate and bring this group of workers at par with the other group of workers in our society. which is why CDI observes a week-long domestic workers every year, which commences from 10th of June and concludes on 16th June. That is on this day, International Domestic Workers Day, with a grand celebration of the domestic workers for their services in our household.
As we all know, domestic work is one of the oldest occupations for women in world history, and it comprises a significant part of global workforce in informal employment and are among the most vulnerable groups of workers. They work for private households, often without clear terms of employment, unregistered in any book. As per the statistics, globally there are almost 76 million domestic workers and 76% of them are women. That's what I meant, because now domestic workers, they play a vital role because now most majority of the domestic workers are from the women sector. Because now it's not like those days domestic worker now the situation has changed. Our domestic workers and even the organizations worldwide, even the starting from the press, media, and from researchers, scholars, academicians, they're all researching, even from the ministry level, like they are finding ways for social security for the upliftment of the domestic workers, recognizing their works. That 76 million projection which was given by WIGO and ILO, data was used from 155 countries and territories to examine the domestic workers worldwide. The overwhelming majority, which is 62 million or 82%, let's say, of the world's domestic are in the developing and emerging countries, while 13.4 million domestic workers are in developed countries. And even this number is increasing steadily in the developed and developing countries as we speak. Even though a substantial number of men work in this sector, often as gardeners, drivers, butlers, etc., 80% of all the domestic workers are women. They provide direct and indirect care services, and as such are key members of care economy. Domestic workers, despite their important role, they are among the most exploited and abused workers in the world. They often work 14 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for wage far below the minimum wages. They may be locked within their workplace and subject to physical and sexual violence. It is one of the most unregulated and undervalued activity in most of the countries. Although they provide essential services, domestic workers rarely have access to rights and protection. Around 81% are in the informal employment. That is twice the share of informal employment among other employees. They also face some of the most strenuous working conditions. They are also vulnerable to violence and harassment and restrictions on freedom of movement. Among them, children and migrant domestic workers are often the most vulnerable. In a new convention adopted by ILO in June 2011, Convention 189, domestic work is defined as work performed in or for a household or households. Domestic work is different from the care work performed by members of a household as part of a family responsibility and without creating an employment. Here, what I want to elaborate, domestic work, definition itself. It's very like there's no clear definition. Some are confused with domestic work. Was now some of our helpers or family members they also live with us. So they're helping us. We don't categorize them as domestic work because their work come to family ikilo de buhigina, ikilo de ran kuran, ikilo de buhigina man whereas which is was not that the payment kenagalan, right? And whereas domestic work, which is tahalado as such that tahalado the service they provide is beyond much beyond was it's it's a job, and it's a like was there's a time for everything they do. At the end was we should be able to differentiate between these two groups. Further, I would like to say the Supreme Court of India directed the government to include the domestic workers in the proposed Unorganized Workers Social Security Act. Accordingly, the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008, enacted by the Parliament in December 2008, included domestic workers in section number 2N of the Act. The Act stipulated the constitution of welfare boards, which would provide social security benefits like family medical insurance, assistance towards education and marriage of children, and pension in all age to restricted domestic workers, and also to regulate payment and working conditions and check exploitation and trafficking of women and other young household workers. Decent work, like domestic work, when we look at the theme, we recognize decent work for domestic workers for their social protection and sustainable development. Here, when we look at domestic work, we should also look in the perspective like the nature, the effort, nature conditions, the work. There are some places where the domestic work is such like there are lots of harassment, and they are not able to they are not able to share their problems, because once they share those things with others, definitely they might be kicked out of their employment. So in fear of that, most of these domestic workers takan baharan nolai kena nijor he family run kurula sa ami itu pusi do ami kam bana hatai tu enaka kurina bisi pakto bahare nola bi ase itu ura ami kan what I want to appeal to the general public, including all, is that we should recognize itu domestic workers kalaga kam ki laga. They also have the same life. I mean, same. They also have the same life. They also eat. They also go to church. These are children, so we should also respect. It's like there is for their livelihood. It's something they earn for their livelihood. So in that process, we should all respect for the works, for their selfless, unthankful job they are doing for their livelihood. And here, when we come out, decent work as an important concept and a global agenda for promoting social justice in social, political, and economic development has attracted increasing academics and policy interest in the past 20 years. Decent work scaling consists of 5 factors, namely safe working conditions. See, domestic workers criteria, environment in how they are one is like working conditions, namely safely working conditions, access to good health care, adequate compensation, free time and rest, and compulsory values. When we talk about like access to good health and adequate compensation, like payment of wages, all these are related also in their works, because at times these domestic workers tahan itu kam kuriam de tahan laga right time de salary na pabi thage injana so with timely payment na dia do, because at the end like every one of us back at home we have to provide for our family, so with timely payment na dia it's a big concern. So there are ways and means and platforms to address all these issues also. Furthermore, the ratification of international instruments by the government of India, such as the ILO Convention 189 and domestic workers, would affirm the government's commitment towards improving the conditions of this segment in their workforce. Like there are so many social security programs. Ita the government hamra bishi ahi jaase. There are so many social security programs. Itu programs can the unorganized workers, unorganized sectors, especially like domestic workers can give me. There are schemes can the daligena ita do tahangi do benefits kan ke poverty bole. Itu government babi ija do not from the state level but from the central level, from the central government level, itu push Korea. So there are lots of policy making. Once the policy has got, definitely it will refer back to the state government also to accordingly implement these issues. So recently, I mean, there are so many changes. Last time during pandemic 19 day, there were lots of migrant workers also, migrant workers issues, but there was no definite database to support or reach out to the migrant workers. So itu laga experience by the central government under the Ministry of Labour. They have created a national national portal, which is a national statistical data for unorganized workers. From different parts of the country, even from neighboring states, migrant workers can be even domestic workers. So we don't have data jama at the portal there. So there was this scheme, yes, the scheme called E-shram. Sister, so knowing E-shram gonna act registration of unorganized under the E-shram portal. E-shram is especially for unorganized workers. Data collection is important as during pandemic, national crisis, emergency. So the data is important. So data we cannot reach out. Because you might go back to your own state. Because when the state government doesn't have the accurate data, because data sharing it will key relief will be this scheme E-shram in the form of Shramik workers. It will always a scheme though. So here in Kohima town also, in all over the state also, our department we did thorough registration, and the registration is still ongoing. If at any point of time, as per the statistics we received, was Kohima domestic workers registered around 163, somewhere there only. Maybe during it might be more than that also maybe, but during the registration, the nature, the occupation might be have been entered differently also. So it can always be corrected also. And if at any point of time you register, you can always approach our office also. We have a help desk where we will do the registration for you. And then if registration it's not that itu abune register kurse iti abune ki kiba relief bule lagamle itu the data collect kona rakese kwasna slowly when this system of integration into various social security schemes run by different departments, because slowly it also integrate kona ekta hola ase itu then without this E-shram card, availability of all these schemes will be an harder, like Aadhaar card. When the Aadhaar card was first launched, everybody were apprehensive that this and that. But now, without Aadhaar card, we cannot proceed for anything, even for bank process, from the school, so without Aadhaar card is mandatory. So, likewise, even for unorganized workers, E-shram registration it's going to be a very important factor. And not only that, this E-shram card is going to be an ID card for you also. Like if you do PAN India, not only for Nagaland, PAN India, wherever you do, this ID card is going to be identity for you, and it will be PAN India card. And your registration here will was a picture Diwaita Nagaland TV, but among organized workers as not only in the domestic workers, but even in construction, different sectors to BCS. So yeah, the unorganized and the register, and we will have a definite clear picture of how many unorganized workers are there in Nagaland. And especially I'm reflecting on domestic workers, because I would like to encourage those who have not registered under this E-shram to come forward for registration also. And if we can have any awareness or sort of program, you can always let me know so that we can come and have an awareness program on this also. Besides this, there is other scheme which for the unorganized workers, the Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandan Gana. I think it was launched prior to this E-shram, way back in somewhere 2017-18. Here also, central government organized sectors or from the organized sectors pension benefit, say for government sectors like us, we get pension. Under the ministry, their idea is like even for the unorganized workers, they should have a pension scheme. So like pension in a sense, there will be a contribution. The equal contribution will be borne by the central government. And when you reach the age of like 60 years, I want to keep contributing to this the central government by equal contribution for a monthly pension 3,000 This registration drive was also carried out way back. Although it was not some have registered, but it's a voluntary sort of thing. So anytime you want to do, you can always inform the department or the registration part. As a department, we are a facilitator for all these schemes. But for registration, it's the CSC, Common Service Centers. I think Common Service Centers. We can always ask the department. We are always there to assist you about the schemes also. So it's a voluntary scheme as a contribution as a say 18 years per 40 years tak ekta ase. So tate gora contribution itu hisab te years line hisab te contribution kore. Apuni 55 rupees disi kore to equally central government 55 rupees de. Enaka jana apuni to contribution to 60 years tak dibo. 60 years diabs de apuni monthly pension pabo. So enaka jana there are so many schemes coming out. Even for that, social security for the unorganized workers. It has become a worldwide awareness to solve the and definitely one day it will benefits to so whatever the government can write, those schemes can be not only from a department, from the state governments also. No, the issue regarding this also, the amendment is there. The amendment is going on regarding the unorganized workers also and the child labor and abolition these things. So the process is already there with the government for amendment. So once the amendment comes into play, lots of these regulations and will come into effective.
Yeah. And how long it will take for the government to make the amendments?
That I cannot say because the department we also pursue with the file. So there are also like the file goes to lots of department like law and justice, also they examine the cases also. So there are meetings between the departmental and the high level stakeholders also. So we cannot assure that how long it will take, but definitely the file has already been moved already. Yeah.
Regarding these policies, whether draft has been completed?
Draft on
Amendments and all. Since the center has already amended.
Yes, yes.
At the state level, we are yet to do that.
Yes,
So
with the amendment, along with the amendment, the draft has already been put forward. It's not in the initial state, but it's already in the process. Yeah, with the amendment. Yes, yes.
When was it?
I think it was some years back, but maybe due to some issues regarding like, see, at times when we put up also, the file comes back to us for some changes through the law department also. So we make necessary correction and we put forward. So at times it takes time also.
Nagaland TV, Sop Manulaga Awas. Watch us live on Geo TV and on your television sets as well. For Dimapur viewers, we are on channel number 994 in Global Chapter, and Kohima and Mokokchung viewers, switch to channel number 138 on Hornbill Digital. For all news and updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and Twitter.